Hello and welcome to part 4 of the electronic still photography series from Rochester Institute of Technology. Last week we talked about the electronic darkroom. Today we'll show you how to get photographs out of your personal computer. We'll take a short break about halfway through the program, and during the last 15 minutes of the program we'll answer your phone and answer fax questions as well. Write down your questions on the call-in question form throughout the program and be ready to call in as soon as the phone lines are open. The toll-free number is, for call-in questions, 1-800-262-3144, and the fax number is area code 716-724-5522. I'd now like to reintroduce Tony Girardi, the king of all floor managers. This is the ultimate promotion that any floor manager could receive, and we're glad to have him with us again today, Tony. And we'll probably be needing him during the show for other things than just floor managing. So let's get started. All right. At least one more time, we're going back to the chart. This is where we started 4 weeks ago. We talked about capturing images using electronic cameras, then using desktop scanners or even drum scanners that might be in your service bureau or your color separator, hand scanners, and then image transmission. Second week, the third week, the electronic darkroom, working in the personal computer, storing images for long-term storage or for SneakerNet, moving it to your service bureau. Today, the thing that artists and photographers look forward to most is, okay, I've heard enough about this, I've heard enough about that. What about hard copy output? That's what I really understand. So some of the things we're going to be talking about today are the soft display, the computer monitor or television VCR. Image transmission is something that has to be related to that type of thinking. Halftone technology, in other words, going out to something that would go on to a printing press or some other kind of electronic hard copy output that uses halftone technology. Film recorders, writing back to what we would call the real stuff, film, again, color separations and halftones, of course, and then hard copy prints, which in this case we'd be talking about electronic prints. Electronic prints, for instance, like thermal dye prints or inkjet prints. Okay. Now, preparing for output. What are the kinds of questions that an artist, photographer, or printer have to ask themselves? There's a number of things that we as communicators need to deal with. First of all, talk about calibration. We've been talking about this for the last 3 weeks. Again, we'll stress it today. It's something that you should be doing in your own studio, your own news area, wherever you're working with images, calibrating your system from the output, or what I referred to last week in terms of reverse engineering, all the way back to input. Calibration is important. There's certain things that you can do in your own studio to help in the entire process. The viewing conditions. We talked about this last week. It's even more important when you think about hard copy output. Are you looking at under daylight conditions, mixed light conditions, tungsten, fluorescent? You need to establish that for your hard copy viewing as well as your computer monitor area. The halftone versus the continuous tone print. Do you know the distinguishing differences between them, or in certain cases the foggy area between what a halftone and a continuous tone print is? For instance, in this case, we're looking at two images. On your screen right, we're looking at a halftone image. On your screen left, we're looking at a continuous tone image. Obviously, there's some other big differences here versus a grayscale versus a color image, but we need to be making those kinds of considerations. Are they going to be used for portfolio or display? Or are they going to go on a printing press in a magazine, a newspaper, or onto a billboard? We'll discuss a few of those today. The final image size. What is the picture size going to be? In other words, the number of inches, the number of millimeters on the XY axis. And the computer image resolution. It's simply not good enough to get a scan, then work on it in the personal computer and say, gosh, I hope the resolution is right. You need to know what the resolution is. You have to have the appropriate amount of information to get the best quality output. And input resolution. if you're going to get a scan from your scanner in your own studio or newsroom or wherever you're working, or you're going to purchase a scan from a service bureau or a photo finisher, you need to know what resolution is necessary. And color management is another critical area. This is a newly evolving area, especially for people on the desktop with such programs like ColorEase, KEPS, Cache's color management system, as well as AgFiz PhotoFlow. Okay, first thing we want to do, before we start talking more about the technical side, is I'd like to start with a small demonstration dealing with getting pictures out of your personal computer. Again, working on a Macintosh 950 today. I'm printing to a new printer, Kodak's new 450 GL, which we really refer to as a medium format printer. Now this is a thermal dye transfer device, and I'm going to go out and open up an image at this point. This image I've already sized for the resolution of this printer, which is 137 pixels per inch. And I can make roughly a 3.5 by 4.5 inch print from this. So it's a great medium format size to have. Not right for many display conditions, but great if you need a small print. After I've optimized the print and calibrated my monitor to my output device, I'm going to want to prepare to send it out. I'll go to page setup. In this case, I want to make sure I'm going out to a landscape view, not a portrait view. I want to go to the full percentage size, and we don't have to be dealing with screens or transfer functions at this point. So my page setup is all ready to go. And now I simply go down to the print mode. When I'm in the print mode, I have the ability to print one or a number of images like you would off a laser writer or other printing devices. Here I've selected my device. I can also adjust brightness here, although you really should be doing this in your image editing program, whether you're on the Macintosh or the PC platform. And I can do some tinting. These would be very like last-minute changes, and I don't recommend them. And in this case, I'm now ready to print. So we're taking this bitmapped image, and we're sending it over to a digital printer, which will give us an image that's roughly about this size. And I'll just hold up a small print as we're waiting for this image right now. Okay? This was an image that I think I had showed the week before. Okay. Now it's coming over to the printer. It is sent it over to the frame buffer. I now can go back and work on my image or open up another image. In this case, I'll do that because, you know, in the computer world, you think of multitasking, so I'll take my chance and multitask here a little bit. And now I'm coming out with my print in just a few seconds. It takes about 90 seconds to get this image from your printer. My next image is up. I can start optimizing that for output as well. So, after we do this, I'm going to show you some of the larger printing technologies, and then we'll talk about the different printing technologies that are available for artists, photographers, and printers today. So, I think we're getting near to the end of our 90 seconds, and I hear it transferring the image, and we'll have it in just a moment. Here it is now. So I bring the image down. You can take a look at what I've got. Okay, and as you see that image, that's a very, very close likeness to the image that I had on the computer monitor before. That's the way it should be working. Very good. All right. Now, I would like to talk about print appearance. That's a critical issue. Artists and photographers are thinking about this all the time. What do these things look like? Some important considerations in print appearance is what are the things we look for? Well, what are the things that you look for right now in a print that you make, whether it be a silver halide print or a print that you make in a shop or actually an image that goes onto a printing press? You're looking for printer resolution. Do you have enough resolution in your images? You need to have enough spatial resolution to show the detail. The bitmapped versus the PostScript image. The images that I just showed you were bitmapped, but possibly you're taking your bitmapped images and you're moving them into a page layout program like Quark Express or a presentation program like Aldus Persuasion. You need to be mixing both types of image types there. The tonality of the image. We need to take a look at this. I want to show you this photo CD image here right now. Move my mouse out of the way because that would just mouse things up a little bit here. Okay, the general tonality of the image is important. What's your first reaction to the appearance of that image? The color depth. Are you getting the right brightness and contrast? Are you getting enough density in the color areas that you expect to see? The color space. Different electronic printing devices, whether they be electrostatic, laser, thermal dye transfer, or even back to film recorders, are going to give you a different sense of color. The image stability is also a very critical issue, especially for people who are working in museums or displaying images under very trying conditions. In other words, where we have quite a bit of, excuse me for a second here, daylight, okay, ultraviolet light. The dye-based images, the ink-based images, and the pigment-based images, they all will have different lasting qualities. Generally, we are getting the best with the pigment-based images. Okay, now I want to go over to another demonstration. This is also on thermal dye transfer. Okay, now I'm printing with a new printer today. This printer has never been shown before in the United States. And essentially it's over here on my right. This is the new Color-Ease printer from Eastman Kodak Company. It's a thermal dye transfer printing process, and we just got approval to show this to you today and also show you some output. I think you'd be quite excited by the results that you're able to get from this type of device. Again, I'm hooked to a Macintosh 950 with only 8 megabytes of RAM, which is totally sufficient for the kind of work that I'll be doing here today. I'm now going to go to Adobe's Photoshop. I have an alias built in System 7.0, and I'm going to open up an image, one that I think you'll recognize, by Alan Lamont. You remember him from last week. He was here and did some terrific work in terms of retouching, does a lot of montage work, and we were lucky enough to get his image to show you through thermal dye transfer, not only in reflected prints, but also in transparencies. And then I want to show you an electrostatic print later on as well. So the image is coming onto your screen right now. You will probably recognize it. This image has not been calibrated. I must stress, not been calibrated to the printing device. That's something that you as a user should be doing. And the first thing I'll do, assuming that I'm pleased with the image at this point and have done my color correction and sharpening and cropping and retouching, that of course would be Alan in this case, but speaking for Alan, is go down to the page setup. In this case I'm dealing with a portrait mode. I want to keep it at the exact size of the image, and I should be ready to go. After the image scrolls in again, I will come down to the print mode. Now, what I'm connected to here is a Ethernet, which is an option with this particular device and other printing devices, directly over to the printer. It has 300 pixel per inch resolution. I'm going to make one image. It's a printer image. It's not a PostScript file. I want to go in and check my options. I'm not doing a transparency, but I'm doing a paper print. I will select the photo CD settings for this because I've checked on it beforehand and that works best for me. And I'm now ready to print it. So it's sending that over Ethernet over to our printer on the right that you saw before. And in a few minutes we'll be able to take a look at that print off the Color-Ease, and I want to show you some other thermal dye transfer prints. All right. While we're waiting for that print, I want to talk to you a little bit about the different printing processes that are available to artists and photographers today. Before we know what they are, we really need to go and take a look. Let me find my right pen here, if you'll give me just a moment. I don't always talk to myself that way, but... All right. Before you know what to get, you have to find out where they are, what kinds of services are out there. Well, where do you locate an output service? Well, first of all, you might purchase your own personal printer. For instance, I showed you the small medium format printer just a few minutes ago. That's something that an individual or a small company might consider purchasing, as opposed to going to a service bureau, as we talked about last week, offers a number of services, generally only in the halftone world, but in certain cases they're doing continuous tone work as well. Your photo finisher also, when you think about your small prints, your holiday prints, your 3-inch by 5-inch prints, they also do enlargements and now are doing electronic hard copy output as well. And certainly look to your professional labs, who have always been very excited about investigating different ways of bringing images out to satisfy customers' needs. So they may be experimenting as well with electronic hard copy output, or actually have quite a number of services available. Your copy center that we discussed last week, which is primarily doing business document copy work, are doing service output for continuous tone and halftone output. And again, the new concept of an imaging center. What about a place that you go to that offers maybe one or a number of the services that might be offered, or all the services that might be offered by what we've seen in the categories above? The color separator as well. Generally think about this firm only offering color separations for advertising, billboards, posters, etc. But in certain cases they're doing continuous tone output for artists and photographers as well. The forms of hard copy output. Continuous tone or halftone. That's the decision that you need to be making a decision between. Oh, I think I repeated myself there. There's the decision. What you'll be looking at in this case is also, if you're bringing in images, are they pixel-based images like we would have, for instance, with a bitmapped image here on your left, or are they object-oriented images? And I think this overhead or display that you see right now fairly nicely describes the difference between a bitmapped image description of, let's say, pictorial or pixel space and text versus object space and text. So you may be using one or both or the other in terms of outputting images. Some of the choices that are facing you right now for electronic output choices, what are they? You don't only have to go to a hard copy print. You may go back to videotape for display, photo CD for image archive, and for business graphics and, of course, display. The monitor itself is a form of output. It's not really very suitable to carry around with you, but in many cases in your office situation, you may find yourself actually displaying more images than you find in printing the images. Your digital magnetic media in terms of recording and your analog magnetic media in terms of recording as well are your output choices. Now let's look at the hard copy output that's there today. The impact printer. How many of you remember dot matrix printers? Oh, you can probably remember the sound of them as you walk by someone's office that had one running. They could run a dithered image that's extremely crude. Don't do pictures with an impact printer. You'll be nothing but disappointed. The laser printer, though, on the other hand, is giving us much higher resolution. I'm going to hold up an image right now of a laser print, which you can see very clearly that you can get excellent quality from laser writers today. This is from Apple's new Pro 630, which is really based on not only doing text and graphics, but also doing continuous tone grayscale images. Another thing that we would want to be looking at is bubble jet printing. Now this is drop-on-demand printing, and here we're talking about very high resolution, upwards of 400 dots per inch. And then when we go to the highest form of inkjet printing, I'm going to show you a standard file from Iris. Now we're going to show you some really exciting things later on from Graham Nash at Nash Editions in terms of the Iris print. But you can see that you get tremendous quality off the Iris inkjet print. The thermal wax systems, which are very popular with graphic designers and illustrators, mainly because they have a limited color palette. In other words, in terms of color resolution, they don't have that many brightness levels, but they're inexpensive and they do give you a very good, quick FPO. That stands for position only. If you want a quick approval, that wouldn't be a pre-press approval, it would be a design decision only. Also, we need to be looking at thermal dye transfer. Thermal dye transfer, as I showed you before, and I'll bring up another image right now, gives you near photographic resolution, very popular with photographers and artists where they need to get deep color saturation and good sharpness. And if we look at, I'll hold up two images now from laser writers. The one on the right is the Canon laser writer, the 500 CLC, or another company that produces this is Kodak, the color edge system. The one on your left is the new Xerox 5775 color printer. In this case, I brought along a grayscale sample off this device. So very suitable for continuous tone type imaging. In addition to the traditional laser writer using toner systems, we should also look at laser photographic systems. In this case, I'm showing you a sample from 3M's color laser writer. This is using laser diode system and exposing photographic paper. Okay, and I want to show you another very large image. This is an electrostatic print done on a Xerox Versatech printer. Now, this is approximately about 40 inches wide, but this printer can actually, some of their printers can actually get out to as wide as 54 inches by 90 meters. And this fantastic print done by Dallas Photo Labs was done for Eastman Kodak Company, and it uses the Kodak Premier system for the image enhancement and retouching. But you can see prints can get to mammoth sizes out there. In many cases, artists and photographers have no idea that they can get to these fantastic tools. I don't have a sample for the next one, but a CRT film recorder would be actually going out to the real stuff, as photographers say it again, back to 35 or 4x5 or 8x10 film. This is a great way to take your electronic images back to film so you can go back to the darkroom again and make enlargements or do display transparencies. Light valve technology is another film recorder, but of very, very high resolution and being able to go to much larger size films. Okay, I'd like to take a minute now and just show you an image from, this was done by John Neal using light valve technology, and this is roughly 20 lines per millimeter, and it uses 5 images to produce this image, and he did all of it in Adobe's Photoshop. That was done with a LVT, light valve technology. In most cases, you would have to go to a professional lab or to an area that deals with agencies and high-end retouching to get those kinds of services. Your Metrum printer gives you another form of output. This is optical output, up to 300 pixels per inch, and we can print up to 8.5 by 11 inches. This is back to photographic paper or reversal paper. You may think of it, for instance, like your R4 type papers that are in use today. The Fuji 3000, which was recently announced, is actually using photographic material. I'm going to hold up an image here by Shelley Katz. Most of you know Shelley because he photographs for Time magazine. He did this with Fuji's new Fujix 3000 camera. And I'll show you another few images using that same camera out to this particular process. Now, this is exposing it onto a light-sensitive photographic material and then transferring the dyes onto a receiver paper. Also, I should mention that the Carbro process that many of you historians have grown to love and revere over the years is now being revitalized by Jim Berger's announcement and development of UltraPrint, which is a modern-day version of doing the carbon process, extremely color stable, color fast, and you're going to find this at your largest professional labs where extreme image durability and stability is necessary. The image setter is producing images like we would have here for the Esprit magazine, which I'll talk more about in a few minutes. And this particular device actually creates bimodal images where we can go out and create halftone films, color separations, and then go off to press. And then a film plotter is what would be used by a color separator. It essentially is writing back at extremely high resolution for color separations. Also, the film plotter would be used to create separations for UltraPrint that I mentioned just a few minutes ago. And as of just about a year and a half ago, we have the introduction of the digital press, like the Heidelberg GTO, that will let us go from the computer directly over to the printing press. All right. Okay, I'm going to go over and take a look for that print that we just got off the Colorese printer. This is also a PostScript printing device. Oh, somebody readjusted my chair while I was gone, which wasn't really fair. And I'm going to put that into the light booth so you can get an idea of what this image looks like. Now, this is 300 pixels per inch, and I'm roughly printing it at roughly about 6 inches by 9 inches, and we could print this up to roughly 8 by 8.9 inches. This printer is not currently available, but it will be in June. So call Kodak if you want to find out when it's going to be available in your area. In addition to doing the prints, I also have the capability of doing transparencies. And if you'll bear with me for a minute here, I'm going to put up the transparency of that print as well. Now, this was primarily focused for the business or document imaging market, but I think photographers and printers are also going to be very interested in this new thermal dye transfer printing process. Okay? All right. At this point, I usually ask my students, are there any questions, but I don't think I can do that. If there are any questions, call us in a little bit. Right now, I'd like to get beyond thermal dye transfer printing process, some of the very orientation type lecture that I just gave you, and I want to show you a videotape by Alan Lamont at RIT talking about the Canon CLC 500 and some other printing technologies. So let's take a look at that tape right now. Alan, you're going to be printing today here in the electronic photography lab on a device that's probably foreign to many photographers and artists. A Canon laser color copier. You don't find this in a traditional darkroom. You may find it in a service area. Why do you print here?
Basically because in terms of output here in the lab, it is probably our best proofing device that we have, so that I can see the progress of my image as I'm actually creating it in whatever program.
Now, do you put images on the platen here and scan them? Or?
Yeah, you can. The actual CLC and DiceNet system can work as an actual film scanner, a flatbed scanner, and even just as a normal color laser copier. Fairly high resolution device. We can get up to 400 dots per inch. Film scanner is quite good, and as a flatbed scanner, it's very strong too.
You can do a rather large print area here as well.
Right. It's bigger than some of the other flatbeds we have in that we can actually get up to 11 by 17 inches in size in terms of our flatbed scans.
Is that something that's large enough for the artist in many cases, or do they need, generally you think of copy machines being a little smaller. This seems to be a little bit bigger, a little better for the artist.
Yeah, it's definitely better. I mean, it's never big enough.
Never big enough for the artist. Okay. All right, now you said we can copy into this machine, we can make prints from it, but what we're doing today is you're printing out of a personal computer
to it.
And the way that's done is through this file server system here, which is actually transparent to the artist and the photographer.
For the most part, yeah.
Essentially, we're bringing in images off the personal computer through this file server system, the IPU, and then directly into the laser color copier.
Right.
So that's the process that you go through when you're making prints.
Right.
You don't work on prints or images on this
No.
system. Okay, good. Well, why don't you show me what you've been working on? Because one of the things I'd love to do is have us compare some of the images you've done off different printing devices over in the light booth later on.
Okay, great.
Why don't you walk us through the process of making a print?
Okay, first thing I would do is actually load the disk in to my SyQuest drive.
All right.
Wait for that to actually mount up on the computer.
So really, electronic imaging for you is after the camera. It's just a way of working with the image, just another tool.
Yeah, it is. It's very much just a tool.
Okay.
And again, I kind of want things to be as technology transparent as possible. So, you know, I don't want the image to look computery if I can help it.
Right.
And I don't want the image to be about what computers do. I want it to be about the image.
Right. Alan, this is the Get Info window. Why are you using that?
Basically to check my values and my RGB values in the various areas as I'm working, so that I will know whether the colors are, in fact, colors that will directly translate out to the CLC or are printable colors. And I'm basically going to just pump some of the cyan out at this point, and maybe actually even pump up a little bit of magenta into it. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is actually get it sized and ready to go out to the printer.
Alan, now that you've finished the photograph and you saved it out as a TIFF file, how do you print it?
Okay, I'm just going to go in and open up DiceNet. And since we're printing, we're just going to go to Print Pixel Image.
And that is a pixel image, a bitmapped image.
Right. Then at this point, all I'm going to do is just tell it to print.
That's it. So you push
Piece
the
of cake.
button and leave the rest to the printing process.
Okay, we've got Kodak 7700 thermal print over here. We have the CJ10 inkjet printer. It's also Canon. And then we have the Canon laser copy, which we just did.
Right. You know, Alan, even though they look very similar in some ways. They all have their own special color characteristics. And I find it fascinating to look at, for instance, what I would see here in the reds and the textural quality that I get here. And this is a different feeling altogether. Can you describe to me your reaction to seeing your image in three different forms?
Yeah, I mean, basically, number one, I would say that of these three prints right now, probably the one that I would be happiest with would be the 7700, although this is still a little on the light side of things. The quality of the ink on this is somewhat softer. The CLC tends to give me, in many respects, I think, closer to what the monitor actually says in terms of the color being a real high-key kind of color. The colors get much more sedate in the other two.
Okay, well, now we want to talk a little bit about laser technologies based on some of the things that you've just seen. I think as you can really see very clearly right now that for artists and photographers, the different forms of output out there, there's so many that many of us don't know about, and they are unveiling themselves on a daily basis, as you've actually seen here on the set today. I first want to talk to you about laser technologies. The laser writer, or the bimodal device. This is what most of us have on our desktops, whether it be an office or a personal home computer. We are finding laser writers becoming very affordable. We think about doing text only with them, and they're great for doing that. They essentially have made the typewriter history with the introduction of the laser writer. But when you think about the bimodal device in creating images, we have to look at what kinds of images can be done. And again, I'm going to briefly show up an image here to you to show you that this is just a straight raw image with no brightness changes made whatsoever. Now, with this kind of image quality for business documents, home documents, class reports, all kinds of information sharing, a laser writer is a very powerful, affordable tool. You must set up the resolution properly, though. You would want to use that sampling ratio that I mentioned last week, the Nyquist criterion of 2:1, to create the suitable gray level for your laser writers. Your color laser writer, on the other hand, is dealing with considerably more resolution and is actually, even though we're laying this down in a half-toning type process, since the resolution is so fine, we consider it a continuous tone print. The color laser writer right now works beautifully for some kinds of images. As artists and photographers, I would say get out and try them, but get a good relationship going with your service bureau so that they can give you the kind of results that you're looking for. Maybe it has it, maybe it doesn't. The laser diode system, which I will feverishly dig for here, in just a minute I'll come up with it. You know, oh yes, here we go, just in time. You didn't catch that, did you? Okay, the laser diode system is where we're actually using laser diodes to expose the photographic material. There's a number of manufacturers, in this case a 3M product, where we're exposing the photographic material. In this case, 300 dots per inch. All right, laser writers and image setters. We've got to make some distinguishing differences, or put up the differences on those different devices right now. First of all, the laser writer, 300 to 600 dots per inch. That is the maximum engine resolution that I have with the laser writer prints that I just showed you a moment ago. This would be capable of doing roughly 50 to 60 lines per inch in reproducing your grayscale images. It shouldn't be confused with its big brother referred to as the image setter, which can start at a low end of 600 dots per inch and go up to 3,600 dots per inch. These are both drum-based and roller transport-based or capstan-based devices that we can create line art, halftone images, and color separations. That's how we were doing many magazines and publications today. Again, I'm pulling up a spree because it's handy and because it's coming out in a few months and I'd like you to receive it, a few weeks, excuse me, and I'd like you to receive it. This is all done via an image setter, which is a very sophisticated laser writer working with a much smaller size. Here in this case we're exposing film. I'd now like to introduce to you an Apple Fellow. An Apple Fellow, very well known within the industry, is known as the father of the laser writer, Gary Starkweather. And we're going to take a look at a tape that we did of him in California just a few weeks ago.
Actually started thinking about that, doing some crude research in 1967. At that point in time, computers were very primitive and expensive. Memory was enormously expensive, and there wasn't much interest in it because you'd have to have at least 1 million bits. Today people laugh at that, but in 1968, 1969, 1 million bits was thousands and thousands of dollars. So Xerox formed the Palo Alto Research Center. I had a chance to go there and worked with many people who also developed the Alto and the Office systems and so forth. But we basically had a vision that if we could make a printer which had appropriate resolution, then indeed you could, especially by imaging with points, you could literally make anything. We called it zero-dimensional imaging. You didn't have shapes that you moved around, you just had points. So we got that started in 1971, actually built the first unit, and we're thrilled with its results, page-a-second machine and so forth. And it took 2 or 3 years, but then about 5 years after that was first product delivery. If you look at the traditional world of commercial printing, it's very much the world of the specialist, the craftsperson who knows how to do things just right. It's a recipe-based thing, their image setter with their proofing system, with their presses, and yet the desktop publishing person sets up their personal computer, pops something off on a laser writer, and of course, when that comes along in color, their assumption is I can just take the file to a printer and have thousands of images replicated from the printer itself. But the fact is that chain does not exist at this point. There's often a serious disconnect between the person who just printed a color page on a personal color printer and then how do I get that to a professional printer? What do they know to do with the image? So I think one of the things is it probably is very important for the professionals to help enable the communication capability from the millions of users who will be out there in the future to be able to get into their technology. Sometimes the professional printers feel that the world is coming to them, the desktop publishers feel it's coming to them, and the truth is it's really somewhere in the middle.
Okay, talking about the laser writer, I think we should take the father of the laser writer's tool and look at the most recent version of that, and that's the Apple Pro 630. Of course, there's a lot of laser writers on the market, not just the Apple unit, but this is a 600 dot per inch unit, which also has the capability of dealing very, very well with grayscale images, or taking color images and then bring them down to grayscale images. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look at the image that we were just working with a few minutes ago in color. I'm now going to go in and I'm going to go to my chooser. Now the chooser is deciding for me on my Ethernet what device will be printing to. I was working with the color ease. I'm now going to switch over to the laser writer. That's been selected. I need to set my page setup again. But before I do that, I want to go in and deal with image size. In this case, I know that I'm going to be roughly running a screen ruling of approximately 50 lines per inch. So I've sampled my file to 100 pixels per inch at 8.9 inches by almost 6 inches, 5.93 inches. The neat thing about the image size window, which is very, very critical to photographers and artists, is that you must know the output size, the resolution of your device, and here you can address it. So if you have too much resolution in your file, here you can truncate that information, or in other words, throw out the information that's not necessary and set it up for your output device, whether it be a thermal dye transfer printer, a Versatech printer, it be out to a laser writer, or an iris inkjet printer through a special ripping procedure. In this case, I can go directly from my personal computer and I feel satisfied with what I've got. I know that's going to fit on my printing area. Now, at this point, the first thing that a photographer would normally do, especially when working to a laser writer, would be adjust the brightness and contrast, and in this case, using levels or curves or brightness and contrast for those of you who are just starting to work with personal computers, will permit me to establish the print in the way that I might want for the output. And you also develop a second sense for what an image should look like off a particular output device, just the way you would if you were working in the traditional darkroom and printing onto chromogenic paper or a bromide or chloride paper, black and white paper in other words as well. You develop a rapport with the output quality and what it should look like on the screen. Now, one other way to deal with that, and we'll talk about a little bit later in the show, is using color management type tools, in this case ColorSense, which is one of the products on the market today, so that we can establish the color space of our monitor, our scanning device, as well as our printing device. That would not be necessary, though, for this LaserWriter print that I'm going to make right now. So I've sized it, I've adjusted the brightness and contrast to what I think is appropriate, and now I'm going down to print it. I realize that I forgot one thing. I've got to go back and check my page setup. So I go to page setup, and I make sure that it is a portrait setting, and I can go in and check my screen settings at this point. I'm going to be running at 300 lines per inch. No, I don't think I'm going to run that high. I'll go at 100 lines per inch. I'm going to put the screen angle on 45 degrees, use the round dot, although some of you will use different dot shapes for different appearances in your images. And then I'll prepare that. This is a grayscale image when I print it out, so I really should be making my decisions as a grayscale. So now that I've switched it over to grayscale, I've decided, oops, I think I will just adjust the brightness a little more, compress my shadows just a little more to take advantage of the lack of density. Oops, I think I just adjusted it and then canceled out. Hope none of you saw that. Maybe you were taking a break at that point. Okay, now I've adjusted that, and now I'm ready, now that you've come back from your break, to do your print. I'm going to make one image and send it over to the LaserWriter. While we're waiting for this to print, which won't be very long at all, I'd like to introduce you to a very special visit with Nash Editions and the people that make that place tick. So let's take a look at Nash Editions in California.
Hi, I'm Graham Nash, and this is Mac Holbert. We together own Nash Editions, and we get images in an unbelievable amount of ways, from floppy disks to SideQuest disks to Bernoulli disks to DAT tape to image. And in my particular case, in the image I'm going to show you in here, it's an image that I made in my darkroom. It's of my son Jackson, and this was kind of relatively early in the game. I scanned my image into the computer and then manipulate it in the computer to be printed out. I've been making photographs longer than I've been making music. In my first show, the earliest print I had was one of my mother that I'd taken when I was 11 years old. So I've always been a photographer all my life. In the last 5 years, my friend Mac Holbert, who is a co-owner and runs Nash Editions, has turned me on to the Mac world and the manipulation tools of Photoshop and Freehand and Illustrator and all those things, those wonderful software programs. So what I was doing is I was taking a perfect print, to my eyes from my darkroom, scanning it into the computer and manipulating it just to get a handle on the tools. And then I did something that I kind of liked, and I wanted to show it Mac, to show him what I'd done. And I couldn't get it off the screen. I mean, I tried shooting the screen with my still camera, and I tried thermal prints, and I tried early Fujix inkjet process, and they all were terrible.
Sure. Okay, this is our proprietary scanner that we built here at Nash Editions. This was an off-the-shelf machining bed from West Germany that we added new gearing to make it move in a much finer resolution. And we incorporated a Photometrics 1K CCD, liquid cooled. This refrigeration unit over here circulates basically antifreeze through the scanner head and keeps it at a consistent minus 37 degrees. So your signal to noise ratio is very, very low. The image, the entire head moves over the image to be scanned in this fashion. It stops, and then 3 filters, one at a time, take 3 separate exposures of that particular tile. Then a white balance moves in, does a white balance, moves on to the next tile. 3 shots, white balance. This takes, for a piece this large, it would probably take about an hour and a half to scan. A large piece, 3 feet by 4 feet. We did one the other night. It took us 8 hours to scan. But the results are absolutely fantastic. They go directly from the scanner through the A to D converter into the next dimension computer, where the image is then stitched together using some software that we wrote to give you a large image with no aberrations in terms of where the tiles go together.
Well, I think the first problem that we ran into was the inability of the iris printer to print what we wanted it to print. And that was, took us probably 6 months to really solve. When we started out in 1991, we were getting about 1 good print out of every 3 that we printed. And when you're printing on an Archer 640-gram watercolor paper, it's $35 a sheet. So it's a very expensive thing to, to deal with. So we solved those problems, and now the brunt of our research is going into solving the problem of the permanent nature of the inks. And we're doing that in conjunction with American Inkjet Company and Iris itself. I feel very confident we'll have that one solved in the next year.
I have 2 printers going here, one of which is set up on a registration, which I will stop and give you a little bit of an indication of how the printer works. We have 4 nozzles here, each of which has a glass capillary that the ink, the cyan, magenta, yellow, or black ink, is being forced through at a pressure of around 700 pounds per square inch. It is going through a capillary that's 1/7 the thickness of a human hair. There is a crystal attached to that capillary, which is vibrating 1,000,000 times a second. What that does is break the ink coming through that capillary up into 1,000,000 droplets per second. So we have 4,000,000 droplets a second coming through this set of nozzles. They are being sent through a charging tunnel, which is putting a charge on them or not, and then it is going through a deflection structure where there is a knife edge which will separate out the charged and uncharged droplets. The charged droplets being sent to the waste and the uncharged droplets continuing in a path to the paper. The Hertz technology, which is the basis of the iris technology, creates a variable size droplet. Those droplets coming over, those uncharged droplets coming over the knife edge in the deflection structure can be 1 to 32 droplets big. So there could be a stream of droplets 7 droplets long, which will coalesce into a single droplet, which will be a 7 droplet, if you wish. So that when we have these 4 colors hitting the drum, it is creating these different sized droplets, one within the other, actually creating the hue that the scanner saw when it digitized the image. These patterns that you see on the drum here indicate a vertical and horizontal convergence, which allow us to register droplet upon droplet. That gives us this perfect registration that allows for the rendition of that hue in the continuous tone color image. Here we have the printer showing the cyan, the magenta, the yellow, the black is just beginning to print here. They are separated by about 3/4 of an inch, during which time the ink is having a chance to set and to dry before the other color comes back over it. Each color is printing independent of one another. When the cyan finishes, all of the other colors go into buffer at the end of the cycle, and they will continue printing in register to the cyan till the image is completed, as we see here. This is a 4-color black and white. It's a very special form of printing we also have a design for the transform that allows us to put cyan, magenta, and yellow into the dark midtones and shadows, and black prints in all of the 255 shades of gray. We have special ink mixtures that we have had made for Nash Editions, which incorporate very dense cyan and magentas. We are using irises, yellow and black. We are concerned primarily with the archival nature of the inks, that they don't fade. We have done fade testing, which has, with a coating that we apply to the prints when they're done, protects them from water and also protects them from UV rays, which allow them to last longer than Cibachromes according to our acceleration chamber tests. So we're very happy with the range of archivability that we have now. However, we have continued development of our inks such that we will be alpha testing a dye which we use as our ink at this present time, which will last over 100 years.
A lot of people say, you know, well, I've seen iris prints, you know, they're not that great, but we're not making iris prints. This is not the iris machine. It is, basically, but we have bastardized the machine and stretched it to do things that it was never meant to do. When Mac and I go back to Iris back in Massachusetts, and we tell them what we're doing, and they just look at us and they just shake their heads, you know, they go, whew, wait a second, you're doing what? You know, I mean, we put a vacuum system in there because the paper that we're utilizing, the Archie's paper, primarily for my work and for a lot of other people's work, creates so much lint, and the nozzles are so fine that any particle of lint on those, you know, destroys the process, you know, and mistakes happen in the print. So we put a vacuum system in there, and they said, you put what in there? I said, a vacuum system. Originally we had a tube from an actual vacuum, you know, and put it next to the printer head to suck off all the lint before the jets, you know, started to spray the color. And we've even modified it then. And then to get the thicker paper in there, we had to, you know, move the entire head system back to allow thicker paper to go around the drum. Why don't you come over here? Let's show them a few more images.
Okay.
These are all rejects for some reason or other, which is why we're able to handle them with such. Oh,
There's one of the other Hurrells.
Of Norma Shearer.
Yeah. Scanned from the print. Let's see, what do we show here? Well, let's show them what the iris printer was meant to do. This is the paper that the iris machine is meant to print on. It's a plastic substrate coated with gelatin, and as you can see, it allows you a very high degree of sharpness and resolution. However, when you're dealing with artists, it's plastic and doesn't have the feel or the texture that most fine art applications demand.
A lot of the artists are actually, you know, in their vision, are taking our Nash edition prints and using them as a canvas. Here's a good example of Christina de Musset. She would take an image of hers, and we would print it out at Nash Editions. And what she would do then is utilize these as a canvas and go in after the printing and apply gold leaf and other inks and other
washes and paints.
Pastels. And Francesco Clementi, who's an extremely well-known artist, is doing the same thing.
It's another alternate paper. This is kind of like a parchment type paper that we're able to print on.
But the main reaction is the same reaction when my father first showed me a print being made, when I was, I think, 10 years old. And he had, we were very poor. We had 2 rooms downstairs and 2 rooms upstairs. So when he used to take pictures and want to work them out in the dark room, he'd pin my blanket to the window and use my bedroom as the dark room. And I remember specifically to this day, a blank sheet of paper going into this liquid that looked like water, and he's saying, no, wait, see? And this image came floating up out of nothing. And that magic today remains with me. And when that drum is spinning, and I know that it's printing a picture of my family or a picture that I've taken of some absurd moment that I've witnessed, and the drum stops and it's there, beautiful, I have that same feeling.
It's magic.
It's magic.
I think you have to agree that was a fascinating piece. We remember before we started the piece with Graham Nash and Mac Holbert and Jack Dugan, we made an image over to the Apple laser writer. Let's bring up that image right now. Actually, it came out about a minute after that piece began, and I'm going to put it into the light box here. Use a little tape, a little friend of mine, some tape to hold it into place because it's curling some, and have you take a look at the image now that's in the light box. And you maybe can also see, if our people in the control room can also show you the computer version that I have here as well. You can see that I've actually, the grayscale image on the left, this is from the Apple laser writer. On the right, this is our thermal dye transfer print from the Kodak Color Ease printer. and on our Macintosh computer screen, we have both images laid out the same. So maybe you can take a look at that as well. Now, talking about the importance of the artist and the calibration process, one of the things that I hadn't mentioned before, but should be mentioned right now and no later, is the fact that we need calibration between ambient room lighting, the way I'm dressed, which is okay. I'd usually wear something dark when I'm working around a computer. And then the optimum way of working is to adjust this light source to the white source of the computer monitor. And after I have made my print over here, I adjust my screen image only, not my printer file, to faithfully or nearly represent what I have in this booth. One of the things that you'll notice that I'm able to do is I'm able to adjust in the light booth here using a rheostat the brightness. Now I'm set for 5,000 degrees Kelvin here in terms of lighting. I can do that for my transmission or my reflected light source. Then as I come back to my personal computer, I would pull up Gamma Alias, which is a Photoshop tool by Knoll Software. You'll recognize the name, you Photoshop people out there. And in this case, normally I would just adjust the white point of the monitor, the black point, and the gray point to correct for the Apple monitors plus 9,300 degree Kelvin viewing conditions. What you're seeing right now should be, it's what we would get if you took a monitor out of the box. But if I now go in and adjust the gamma, you'll see the checkered area or the lined area in the middle part of your screen till they look the same. And then if I come in and color correct the white point, believe this or not, folks, I'm actually trying to do this on the screen that you're seeing out there. So I'm not using my own screen. I hope it's faithful. Then I would do the same thing for the black point, and I'd be looking in this area. You see the black point and that grayscale down here? I would now adjust the screen. I can't see it. You'll have to take my word for it. My monitor is about 20 feet from here. And then my gray balance, which would be this area, I can adjust the middle grays as well. So I'll try to do that to the best of my ability. That looks good to me. Now, I would save those settings. And I can use that any time that I might want to use that for printing more images. After I've done that, I need to come back to my viewing area here, the viewing booth, and adjust the print area on my screen to match the print area in my viewing booth. So what I want to do is balance this image to look like my printed image. If my printed image is slightly off, that's okay, that's cool. Because what you'd want to do then is color correct and brightness correct your monitor image, and by the next time you print, everything will be just fine. You will get a very good print. That's one basic way of taking care of color management yourself before you get involved with any color management type products. You're working by the seat of your pants, but it's a very good way of teaching the basics of brightness, color, and contrast. Okay, I think it's time for us to take a short 2-minute break, so everybody take a stretch and come right back. Okay, I hope you've had enough chance to stretch a leg, get a drink, do whatever. Now that we're back, ESP93 is going to go into the idea of resources for electronic imaging. Where do you get more information after a tutorial like we've had over the last 4 weeks? Well, there's a number of very interesting places to start. Maybe not the most obvious. Magazines. There are lots of magazines today that are both scholarly journals, art magazines, commercial magazines, presentation magazines. Let me show you a few of those right now so you can be taking a look. One that I pay a particular attention to is called Photoelectronic Imaging. Photoelectronic Imaging comes out monthly, and it really is a heartthrob on some of the things that are going on today in imaging. There are a number of other magazines today, and you really should not restrict yourself to the idea of photography magazines. These might be magazines that are in the photo, art, or printing world, but they are reaching out because the technologies and the people who work there are doing many different things. And you should also look at the magazines that are looking at some of what you say might be some of the more academic or critical issues and discussion points today. Wired magazine or Verba magazine are excellent at discussing some of these topics. They'll also be showing you some of the latest and greatest artwork by artists, photographers, and printers today as well. Magazines are the heartthrob. Pay attention to them. Be fast readers, scan them, save the articles you want, put them in a file. You will use them again. Don't expect them always to get it in a textbook, but there are some books on the market that will serve as a good basic introduction to electronic photography and electronic imaging. I'm going to show you 3 right now that I refer to. Digital Photography, 2 different books, one by John Larish and one by Mikkel Alland, and also Digital Image Processing by Gregory Baxis. I use this quite a bit as a tutorial source. It tends to be more on the technical side, but it's good source information. Look for books now, and also look for some very interesting books coming in the near future. More about that later on. Okay, now, books and magazines are one thing, but what about computer networks? A lot of you out there may have modems right now. How many of you are working at universities? Raise your hands. Okay, I can see them, I counted them. A lot of you at universities have the internet or access to modems, and you can get on to very powerful networks like AppleLink, which has great forums. Now, these networks right now have forums for photographers, artists, and printers. They are not only good in terms of giving you updated information, but if you have a problem with an image, a piece of software, a piece of hardware, an idea that you want to share, where else can you spread it further than getting on a network? And cheaper and faster. AppleLink, America Online is a very powerful network. Kai Krause will talk to you about that in just a couple minutes. He has a regular forum on there, and there is some interesting desktop publishing and photography forums on AppleLink and America Online. CompuServe has a full photo forum, has had one for years. Digital imaging forums and topics come up regularly. Presslink, those of you that are in the publishing business, especially in the news gathering business, if you're not on Presslink, you're missing something very important. And probably from the university standpoint and from the business standpoint, if you're not aware of internet, you should be. Here you have the world at your fingertips to be able to communicate with other academics, business people, engineers, scientists, and artists. Okay, finally, and last but not least, is user groups. User groups in most cases are best focused right in your own community. It could be at your own college, high school, or university. It could be in the larger, let's say, rural community where you're finding other Mac users or PC users or software users. They can be a tremendous resource to call up if you have a problem or question. So talk around. It's usually by word of mouth you're going to find out about that. Get in touch with your local computer store and find out what user groups are out there. To speak about networks, though, let's get back to Kai Krause. Last week he spent some time with us on Kai's power tools. This week I have him coming on a short tape to talk to you about the networking.
And I found that doing online is a very nice way to send each other updates, twice a day without having to have direct modem connections. So you send it whenever you like, he gets it whenever he wants it. And at the same time, the electronic mail aspect is that I can log on any way I want to, anytime I feel like it, from anywhere I want to, see my mail, read what I choose to read, and answer it as I want to answer it. So it's a nice way to stay in loose contact with probably 50 or more people. I mean, I get about 300 mail pieces a week right now. It's a very interesting way of sharing the information. But above that, I really believe it's the tip of the iceberg of the next generation of communication. To me, it's very much like the old Parisian coffee tea rooms or the Vienna coffee house, where you sit and, you would go out to dinner with 10 friends, and somebody says, look at that, there's Matisse over there, and Renoir comes around the corner. And so you widen your circles by being introduced to people you don't immediately know, but it's also perfectly polite to just talk to somebody because he happens to sit next to you in this little cafe and he reads a book on chaos that you happen to have just read. So that's what happens online. The video conferencing you're doing just now is nice and dandy, but we're not quite at the level yet where everybody has this ability to directly link in. This is the tip of it. This is something you can do right now.
Now, we need to take a look into the future of electronic imaging. What kind of futures are out there today for people who are in communications? Well, we can just begin today, excuse me, we can just begin today to take a look at what's coming down the road. Some really exciting things. Camera technology. Cameras are coming out very quickly. Electronic cameras. The ones that we showed you on the first show, showing you the cutting edge in still video cameras and also in still digital cameras. In fact, there's a lot of cameras that aren't even available for public eyes yet here that are under a non-disclosure. No, only kidding. But cameras coming out so quickly, it's hard to keep up with what's going on in that particular area. Along with cameras, we have to take a look at the size of imagers, the cost of imagers, and the pixel density. As I mentioned to you before, these imagers are getting higher in density, lower in cost, and higher in performance. Major silicon labs today that are working to produce charge-coupled devices are producing devices that are less expensive, better performance, and better dynamic range. Will it compete with film? Well, no, but for certain applications, it's superb. Okay, scanner technology. Scanners have moved almost 10 years of development in the last 2. And I'm talking about drum scanners and personal CCD scanners. Today's scanners are getting as small as a cigar box. And they actually, in certain cases, like the Nikon OneScan, will actually fit right into your personal computer. Scanners will get smaller, they'll become more personal and less expensive. There are a number of drum scanners out today that are in the $40,000 price range. Those prices will come down with competition and greater market development. So those of us, most of us that will be using scanners for a long time to come, will see tremendous advancement there and more affordability. One way you would describe that is the democratization of electronic imaging. In my case, in my opinion, the personal computer right now is one of the major bottlenecks of working on images. Oh, that's not a long-term bottleneck. The speed of computers has increased orders of magnitude over the last few years and will continue to do so. So those of you, like myself, who are working on PCs and Macintoshes will start to see some very exciting development on the Unix platform and other heavily accelerated new platforms using new system architecture, whether it be from Microsoft, whether it be from Apple and IBM, or from some other system software developer. Look for performance increases as much as 400% within a little more than a year. This means a tremendous amount to people who are in imaging, who are right now doing some rather complex intellectual and visual things on computers, but it takes great periods of time to process that information. Our input devices are great and getting better. Our output devices are the same. Our computer right now needs to do a little bit of a catch-up for what we need to do in the imaging world. Output technology, like I mentioned to you before, has improved tremendously. I hope that this particular tutorial that you've had today, from what we've shown you here, what you've seen from the Nash Editions tape, will show you that there's a tremendous amount of resources out there, and not resources, a tremendous number of opportunities for artists and photographers to get their images out of the personal computer. Anywhere from a small 4x5 print, like I just showed you a minute or two ago, up to a very large print. Tony, you want to bring me that large electrostatic print for a second? Sure. I'm going to bring another Versatech print excuse me here, this is a Xerox print, and I think you'll recognize the image. Thanks, Tony.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right. So you can see for artists and photographers, between inkjet printing, electrostatic printing, and other forms of large imaging, we have the ability of getting the word out in different ways, different sizes, and also a whole new set of tools and palettes, color palettes. I want to emphasize that for photographers and artists.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. All right. Okay. Finally, opportunity. I want to stress opportunity, because of digital telephone systems, ISDN, is going to grow tremendously in the world of business, education, and photography. Many of us will consider photography as routine as writing in the next few years. This is largely in part not because of cameras, scanners, some degree of computers, but because of our digital telephone system that will bring imaging to the forefront of business today. Okay, to talk more about the future, we have collected a lot of separate segments on leaders in the industry in imaging to talk about education, industry, professional photography. And here, let's take a look at that roll-in right now.
Young professional needs to know computers, needs to have good education, a rounded education. And the other thing is they should never be scared of something new. We have photographers at the paper that I work at that are scared of the new technology. The new technology is going to make their lives easier. It's going to give them the opportunity to spend more time on the job creating better images than they've ever done before.
I think what you're going to see with several things that are going on in the industry, I think communication is going to increase. Visual information is going to be needed more. There is going to be an increased demand for images. There's going to be markets that will be opening up worldwide, and it'll be easier than ever in the near future for photographers to get images to a very large market.
Where I see electronic photography going is just continuing to accelerate what we've seen in recent years, and we've been talking some here, and again I think a lot, probably because I'm in the setting of a workshop here that's testing electronic photojournalism applications of technology, of how we're going to continue to accelerate the movement of pictures now that the quality level of electronic cameras has reached the point of certainly easily the point of acceptability and almost the point of little concern whether the quality is good enough. Newspapers, I think, typically have been very negligent in providing training. It's been one of those situations where they typically allow you to learn on the job and pick up what you need, and I think if you've watched the introduction of color into newspapers and now desktop imaging technologies, it's been a learn-as-you-go process, and some of the early stuff we've seen go to print probably should not have gone to print, but it's just been the lack of being able to get training before you had to jump in and make it work. So certainly the color quality is improving at a lot of papers, and we see images looking better and better, but newspapers have not really supported training, I believe, to the level that photographers and picture editors need today.
I think that photographers who, especially those who come to conferences that deal with electronic subjects and how to operate in the new environment, will clearly come out ahead. What we have to understand and remember is that we are information providers. And as photographs become ones and zeros the way words became ones and zeros, it becomes easier for us to disseminate, and it becomes easier for us to get that information out. We're going to see changes in the way photographs are marketed. We may well end up, under some scenarios, see changes in the pricing structure. that commercial photographers use. We may see the development of more niche markets, and markets in quotes there perhaps, in terms of delivering images. But I think I'm certain that at some point when we went from having to coat our own glass plates into being able to buy commercially available film, that there were a number of people in the industry at that time who proclaimed the end of photography as they knew it. Clearly, when television and television news came to the fore in the late 50s and 60s, and as we saw traditional magazines such as the Old Life magazine fall by the wayside, there were a lot of people who said, photography's dead, photojournalism's gone. Well, the truth of the matter is that there's more still photographs and more markets available today than there's ever been before. And what we have to remember is that with desktop publishing, you don't need to own a printing press the size of a warehouse in order to become a publisher. And everyone who owns the smaller equipment has the capability of being a publisher are going to need photographs.
I think the biggest need in electronic photography currently is the ability for massive production. Currently the technology is meant for, in the case of the XL 7700 printers, it's 5 minutes of print roughly. You got to acquire the image, work on the levels, send it to the printer, so you're talking 15, 20 minutes per image. Then you start sending them to mass production. So I think the industry is not going to embrace digital technology until you can get to the level of where a Noritsu can go, that can print rapid pictures. The customer walks in, he wants 100 prints in 3 hours. Well, then the wet processes are ideally suited for that. So that's, to me, in electronic darkroom, they need to address the production issue in order for it to become readily accessible for the common user. The biggest advice I would give to a young photographer coming up today is don't be afraid of the technology, and don't think that you're limited by using a digital camera system. You can stretch the limits just as far as you can with a film process as you can in a digital, and in some cases a heck of a lot more, because you're dealing strictly in a digital signal. And so you have much more manipulation you can do, and much more creative edge you can take it in a much more rapid environment than having to wait for a film wet process environment. So my biggest suggestion would be, don't be afraid of it. Embrace it and go with it. And for me, I embrace it. I think it's great. I think the technology is interesting, and it's taking us to new limits that, having gone through traditional schools and wet process and hand massaging prints, I love not having to be in a darkroom for 8 to 9 hours a day, handing out prints all day, when I can put them on a file server and everybody can access them.
I think someone that's trained in the art of photography and used to the wet darkrooms will understand and better be able to manipulate the digital field to really produce the quality imagery.
Well, let me say that anybody in a university today is at a great crossroads. They have a lot of opportunities ahead of them. Technology is changing, careers are changing, job descriptions are changing. The description of a newspaper photographer today is so different from 5, 10, 20 years ago. Instead of needing darkroom skills 20 years ago, today you do need computer skills. You have to know how to transmit, at the bare minimum, what is a transmitter and how it works. At the bare minimum. So the job descriptions are changing. What you need to know is changing. Technology today, from the perspective of the photographer, is nowhere near where it needs to be to make them happy. Such technology as thermal prints, even video cameras, digital cameras, is not quite the dynamic range or the high quality that photographers like to see their work represented as. It's changing rapidly. So there's always a question of, well, if the quality isn't there today, why should I get involved? Let me wait. You know, I'll just wait, and when the quality is there, then I'll jump in. It's real easy to say that. The problem with that is that the technology is moving fast, and you're either going to be in the midstream of it and moving downstream with it, or you're just always going to be standing on the shore waiting to jump on that log, and you're just not going to get there. You've got to get into the mainstream, go with the flow, and grow with the technology. There's no way you can just jump in and in 6 months or a year get up to speed. It takes many years. The first electronic imaging that we did at Time magazine is now more than 12 years ago. For over 12 years, we've been involved in such simple things as we look at them today as video grabbing, and then it wasn't done with a small little box. But now we can talk about high-end situations based on 12 years experience in being in the mainstream. So I encourage people to get into that mainstream. Don't be satisfied in listening to other people saying, oh, the quality's not there, the resolution's not there, it's not going to look as good, dynamic range. I mean, I know all the buzzwords, but it's meaningless. What's important is, it is getting there faster than you realize. And if you're not already up to speed, you can't just jump onto that moving boat. The role of the new director of photography in this new electronic newsroom is going to be very different from anything you've seen before. It's now not just a matter of managing people, controlling images, the flow of images, but now he also has to become the gatekeeper of keeping the credibility and the integrity within the newsroom environment. It's so easy now to be able to do things with photographs and images that we couldn't do before. Yes, we can move mountains and hats and people's faces, and it has to become the role of the director of photography to oversee all this and become a gatekeeper. And within an electronic environment, it's that director of photography who has to be on top of the latest of electronics, the latest way things are done, and how it's done, and why it's done, and be able to incorporate it into the flow of his work and the work of his department.
I think we're all running as fast as we can because, as anyone that gets into the computer world knows, the magazines come and they're all several hundred pages, and every issue seems has 250 new products that we all have to know about. So we have to study, we have to read up. In the film processing business, once you've bought your film processing machine and you've mastered the E6 process, then a new film will come out every couple of years, and that's pretty much your learning curve. In the digital imaging business, something new comes along every single day and changes the complexion of the industry, whether it's a piece of software, whether it's hardware. I mean, we're talking about photo CD now. We were the first installation anywhere of photo CD, and that was only 8 months ago. So we're talking about an industry that didn't exist 8 months ago. And of course, in the middle of the year, we're going to get the Pro Scanner, which is going to change the industry again, a quantum leap. Then we're going to be able to do portfolio CDs, we're going to be able to do catalog CDs. All these things are quantum leaps in an industry that is just beginning. Well, the first thing that photographers need to do is get over the fear of digital imaging. If they can get over that hurdle, that will help a lot. And I'll tell you what we do here, and I think I've seen this from other people in other places, and I think the best thing that you can do, here's what we do here. We offer classes in Photoshop. That immediately demystifies the process, which is really what we want to do. And I've talked to a number of photographers who were sent by their stock photo agencies up to the Kodak Center. Now that it's changed in Camden, but they all come back, and I can't count the number of people who have come back from a class or taken our classes, and they've got this brand new look about photography. And with many photographers, it's a rebirth in their interest in photography. Right away, they understand it, they get excited about it. Some people may say, it's not for me right now, but they've gotten over the fear, they understand it. And a lot of the guys are embracing it. And I've seen clients of mine whose careers have changed over the last year or year and a half based on going in, taking a class, learning Photoshop, and then taking it from there. So I think that's the best thing that anybody can do. And I'm not talking about going back to school, just taking our classes here, for example, are 8 hours of study. That's enough to get your foot in the door, to understand the language, and to see what the program is capable of. What I see happening is there's going to be, for example, a lot of photographers come out of school, and the first thing they do is they become assistants. Well, I think that and I've seen a lot of people come from Brooks and the Art Center out here, they need to have skills that are of value. And they also need to have skills that bring a new value to the marketplace. And I would say that if you are a student right now, if you graduate from any of the RIT or any place, you come out to join the photographic world, if you have digital skills and you have photographic skills, I would say that your odds of getting a good job skyrocket. Because the photographers that are out there in the market now, the veteran photographers, don't have the time or the inclination to do the Photoshop work themselves, but they are looking for people, and they certainly will be looking for people who have those skills so they can plug that right in. And I see the era of the digital assistant, which is definitely the next thing that's happening. And I've already got clients here who are veteran photographers who have taken our class or taken a class at one of the other places, who are so excited about this technology. But I know that when they start getting work based on the kind of presentations that they're doing right now, they're going to need an assistant to actually sit at the computer and put in the time, because they're going to be out there shooting those pictures. So I think it's critical. I would say it's critical. I keep wondering every year that I see new students being pumped out of these universities, and I see that the photography market is not expanding because of the economy and all the rest of it, I keep thinking, what are these people going to do? How are they going to have a career? And I couldn't advise more strongly to have a computer background. Absolutely essential.
I believe that in the future, photographers will more and more be involved in finishing up their product before it gets handed off to the client, which means that they will be directly involved with the photo retouching, whether it's done on their own systems as desktop systems become more powerful, or whether they're working with retouching shops such as TX. But I think it's important for a photographer to retain control for the integrity of the image. If he hands it off and it's not done and it goes to an agency and the production person handles it as opposed to the creative, you might not get the same creative effect. So I think that's clear because I've been seeing that change in the market over the past 5 years. Also, I do believe that as systems become more powerful from the desktop side and as high-end systems become more cost-effective, that photographers will be doing more of this sort of work themselves, using shops like TX to do their input and their output, but doing the heavy manipulation on their own system.
Photo CD is a very important technology for Apple Computer. We think that it's going to educate people and enlighten people on what digital imaging is, how to use photography on a day-to-day basis on your desktop, both on the professional level and also probably in the end user at the home. And we've looked for ways to implement Photo CD into our day-to-day work stream, and we've done that through introducing QuickTime into the scenario, allowing you to open up Photo CD through QuickTime, and we think that's made a great impact on our markets and has been very positive. We expect to continue to work with Kodak and to continue to work with Photo CD to leverage it, to expose it to as many people as possible, and to help Kodak grow as they go forward their own use of Photo CD and their own vision for where Photo CD can go in our own world. One of the areas that we will be introducing in the next year will be PowerPC, which is our risk-based architecture. And we don't want to just introduce risk for the sake of risk. We want to introduce it at a low price point that really is accessible to all people. And I think you're going to see us come out with products in the next year that are much, much faster than some of the things that we have on the desktop today at the high level, the Quadro 950 level, that are going to be very affordable for people, especially in the digital photography area. And as they get this type of computing speed on their desktop at the price range that we'll be coming out with, I think that the throughput and the rendering times that they're now having problems with Photoshop or they're a little frustrated on, that are just now being addressed by the 950s, those kinds of problems will go away. People that don't understand computing are going to be locked out in some ways in the future of a world that's changing very quickly and in a very dramatic way. And I think we need to work with our education centers like RIT to help educate all users, not just people that are interested in digital photography, but people that might be outside that, about what computing is and how it can go forward.
I believe that good enough probably has some value, but I suspect the term more or less originates in the fact that people could not afford the best. And it's, to me, a bit like an economy car. All of us would love to drive the fanciest car there is, but most of us, it's an economic practicality. So I think good enough probably has practical sense, but in the real imaging world, people learn very fast what's good and what's better. And therefore, I think there will be a constant ascent up the quality mountain, basically, until people get things that make them ultimately satisfied. And I've never seen anyone who said, oh, my image is too good. So basically, I think there will be a constant press to do better and better and better. Usually the average desktop user wants professional-looking images. They just don't know how to get it to happen. I think the tools are coming together, but first what you have to have is you have to have a set of tools, then you have to have software which enables those tools, then you have to have user interfaces which allow normal mortals to figure out how to craft this, and at some point in the future it'll be recipe-based. The model I like to think of is the automobile. If you think of an automobile, it's a very eclectic combination of technology. You have electronics, chemistry, materials science, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, human factors, all built into a device in which of the literally hundreds of different cars that are on the road, you could probably get in virtually all of them and at least get them to go down the road in a reasonable fashion. The same cannot be said of computer systems. They vary all over the place, and therefore we must come along to some common basis by which people would be able to set down at diverse systems and be able to make them work somewhat similar. I think Apple's role is one both of providing core products to enable that, as well as providing a platform on which third parties can craft very unique solutions. By no means can we do it all, but on the other hand, we more or less have to provide the rails and perhaps the locomotive on which you can attach the rolling stock to make the train go.
Hi. Now that we've taken a look at the future, let's look at some future activities that are occurring in electronic imaging. First and foremost, first coming up is Montage 93, the International Festival of the Image. This is going to be held here in Rochester. It is over a month long, July 11th through August 7th. This is a very broad-based festival of imaging in general, electronic imaging. Where's it going in the future? Artists, historians, critics, teachers getting together to look at these issues, to look at artists' work, to be in seminars and workshops and conferences on these activities. Please give them a call and find out more about Montage 93. The Electronic Photo Workshop number 5. There's only a few spots left for it right now. It'll be out in Colorado this coming September. You saw a short piece on this back on the first show. It is the most exciting one-week involvement with a total electronic newspaper that you'll find anywhere in the world. Get in touch with the Electronic Times as soon as possible if you're interested in being involved with that. Also coming is seminars at RIT in electronic imaging, electronic photography, and pre-press. Contact Dave Tuntarski if you're interested in any of these seminars and finding out more. We have a lot of exciting things going on at RIT, as you probably well imagine. Also, in our College of Imaging Arts and Sciences, you'll see in your printed handout there are numbers that you can call to find out more about programs in photography, printing, and art, and the connection to the electronic image. And of course, last but not least, Esprit magazine is coming very soon. We're going on press in just a matter of a couple weeks. We would love to send it to you. It's free. Please fax your address to us. We mail quite a few right now, but I think we have a few left, so please mail it to us. You can also contact me through Apple Link or internet. You'll see my address on the screen as we speak right now. We want to move along quickly right now because we have everybody on the screen, we have everybody on the phone right now, not on the screen. We have Henry Wilhelm, and we have Elmo Sapwater, Graham Nash, Jack Dugan, and Matt Keefe, and Mac Holbert. Gentlemen, are you out there? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Great.
Absolutely.
Great. All right. Well, Jack Dugan and Mac Holbert and Graham Nash are from Nash Editions. Jack is their master printmaker. Mac wears many different hats in terms of being not only one of the major proprietors of that organization, but a major thrust behind it. And Graham Nash, of course, the artist in residence and proprietor of that organization as well. Elmo Sapwater with Photo Electronic Imaging Magazine is with us. And also we have Matt Keefe from TX Unlimited in San Francisco. You just saw a piece on TX a few minutes ago on their image retouching on the high end. And of course, Henry Wilhelm, known as the Ralph Nader of image permanence. So we've got a very interesting, eclectic group here. Gentlemen, I'm glad you're with us. I thought I'd throw out a few questions and then get some responses from you. First and foremost is, well, let me get to the questions here. I think I lost my place. Oh yeah, the electronic image today means a lot of things to different people. What are image makers missing? In other words, fellas, what are they not seeing? Jack, what do you think about that?
Hello.
Jack.
Yeah.
Did you hear my question?
No, I didn't.
Okay. A lot of people are working with electronic images today, but imaging means a lot of things to different people. What do you think that photographers and artists are missing today in today's new output technologies? What are they not seeing? What are they not realizing?
Well, in terms of what we've been doing here, we found that they were not able to work on materials that they had originally worked on in the fine arts. Being able to work on rag papers on aesthetically pleasing surfaces, or photographers being able to work on different surfaces that they've been used to, from the high gloss down to the nice matte surfaces. Mm-hmm. And being able to work at a scale that they're familiar with, and with a continuous tone and color capabilities that they've been familiar with working as artists in other medium.
Well, Graham, let me throw a question to you along the same lines, somewhat connected. I understand you're coming out of a recording session right now, but Graham, can you tell me what kind of reactions are you getting now since we spoke last? And do you really feel the word is out yet about fine art printing with special places like Nash Editions, or is it still pretty much a well-kept secret?
Well, it certainly is not as extensive as we would like. A lot of the people that come down to Nash Editions are in a frame of mind where they do not question the technology. They, like our friends Francesco Clemente and David Hockney and Robert Heineken and Joyce Neimanus and Douglas Kirkland, are all looking at Nash Editions as a new brush, a new way of realizing their vision onto the substrate that they want. And as far as whether we're out there as much as we want, no, I think it's just at the very beginning. But at least with Nash Editions, most of the people that work in the digital domain are realizing that we're being able to provide them with the finest quality output that they can get anywhere in the world right now.
Thanks. Henry, I had a question about image permanence. Is there much information or understanding of terms of image permanence for electronic hard copy output today?
I think there is. It certainly, we're finding out a lot more about it very quickly. I would say at the outset that it's not really necessary to distinguish between what you'd call electronic hard copy and traditional materials, because with digital imaging you can print on anything. The output could be on Fuji color paper, it could be on Elfochrome, it could be Iris inkjet, it could be a Canon laser copier, and it's in fact one of the very wonderful aspects of digital imaging is that the options for making prints is greater than ever before in the whole history of photography. So I would look at the whole field. If you're talking about direct digital media such as Iris inkjet or Ectotherm prints, we do know the basics on how stable they are. In the case of Iris inkjet prints, the current ink set is not very stable in light fading. It was not designed to be. It was designed as a graphic arts proofing device. But Iris is going to introduce a new ink set which we hope will be a great deal better. There's a tremendous amount of potential, I think, to have very, very stable images, probably a lot more stable than what we've been experiencing in chromogenic photography, for example, using some of the newer printing devices. Another, which I think is very interesting, is liquid toner electrophotography as embodied in the 3M digital match print proofer, which could certainly be used as a very high-end direct digital printer for pictorial files.
Well, along those same lines, let me turn it over to Matt Keefe for a second, Henry. Are you getting more artists and photographers in today directly, Matt? I'm talking to Matt Keefe now out in San Francisco. And are they giving you the kinds of requests for other than silver in and silver out? In other words, maybe wanting to go off to something other than a transparency?
Well, the first problem has always been to get somewhere from the digital file, and the transparency as the immediate solution works well for them. The next problem facing photographers that we deal with and artists is that what medium to go to from the transparency, first of all, for the quality, something that can hold all the information that a transparency can, and what do you do about an archival proof of your image, be it an iris or photographic proof or even a transparency itself obviously doesn't have archival qualities to it. Not to mention the digital aspects of archiving an image. There's really no digital medium out there that's archival yet as well. So the transparency is a good interim step because transparency will last 20, 30 years right in there. And the next step obviously is where do you go? And I think, for instance, Nash Editions is really looking to solve that problem very well with the iris, which I see as having probably the best hope for the future.
Well, are you finding clients, though, that are coming in and asking about those kinds of options right now?
Yeah, more and more photographers, as was said during the tape, are getting involved with the digital imaging, the retouching, etc., right to the end of the creative part of the project. They want hands-on control until the image is finalized, which is obviously creatively the way to go. So they are looking for more and more options as they become, as they get up to speed in the digital imaging world.
Thanks. Matt, I want to turn it over to Elmo for a second. Elmo, are you there? Elmo? Can you hear me? All right, I'll throw the question out. I'm hoping he can hear me. Elmo, photographers are not only going out to continuous tone devices, like we heard from Nash Editions and also from TX Unlimited, but we're finding photographers who also want to go out to halftone images or color separations. What kind of problems are facing photographers and artists today who are attempting this themselves? You're not there? Okay, I think we've lost Elmo in the process here. So let me throw that question out again right now to Graham. Graham, are you coming in, are you finding artists and image makers wanting to come in not only to go out to your Iris inkjet prints for display purposes, for let's say fine art editions as you folks do, but also inquiring about halftone imaging and how that relates to what you're doing? And do you see that in your future at all?
Well, I certainly see it in our future, but we have not been asked specifically, to go to halftone or to color separations. Although, of course, the technology allows us to do that. But maybe Matt can talk about the permanence of the Iris prints and what we're doing to overcome those problems.
Great, Matt, can you respond to that?
Yeah, I think if I heard your question is whether or not we get requests for doing other traditional type of photographic processes at Nash Editions digitally.
Yes.
We do get a lot of requests to clean up images and to restore images. It's something that I think is going to become more and more important, probably not in Nash Editions realm, because we've got our hands full trying to create edition sizes for artists. But I think that it's going to emerge as a real industry that's going to interest a lot of people. We get everything from people wanting to restore a photograph and have it output as an iris to having it output as a 35mm slide, a 4x5, whatever. So that is definitely something that's part of our day-to-day work at Nash Editions.
Hey, Mac, I have another question along those lines. What do image makers today need to do so that they can really communicate well and be successful when they go to the fine art printer like at Nash Editions? And I'd also like to get a response from Matt on this as well up at TX Unlimited. What should they do to prepare for that the communication experience?
Well, I think that number one, I really enjoy working with the digital artists who have gotten beyond the gee whiz stage of computer art. Right. I think there are so many attractive little tricks that you can play with the computer that people sometimes get entranced in those tricks and they forget about what they're really trying to do, which is to express something. They've got to allow the computer to become another paintbrush. Number two, I think that it's very important for them to understand the nature of the output in terms of the resolution of the printer, the capabilities of the four-color printing process in our particular case, so that they can prepare an image that's going to successfully translate to that particular process.
Well, from what I'm Elmo, I hear you're back online right now. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, welcome. We lost you there for a few minutes. I want to throw a question back to you, Elmo, that we had out just recently that was really pointed towards you. A lot of photographers and artists now are starting to do their own halftones and color separations. What is that something that they should think about doing, and if so, how should they prepare for it?
They can work closely with separation bureaus or prepress houses and learn how line screens and halftone dots and the CMYK modes work.
Right. It seems like since they have an image in Photoshop or Color Studio or Painter, they think that's all that's necessary. I just go there, bring them the disc, and get great results. And then you find them coming away disappointed for all the obvious reasons. It seems like what
that is helpful to a lot of people is you can create in any of these imaging software packages. You can create let's say a 4-inch by 5-inch RGB window, and then do a blend that covers the full color spectrum. And then you can duplicate that, and then in the duplication change it to CMYK mode, and if you compare them side by side, side by side, you'll notice a very dramatic difference between the coloration and the hues.
Mm-hmm.
And that might give them a better idea of that we're looking at RGB monitors and we're talking 4-color separations in many instances, and that they are very incompatible.
So in other words, really, people who are interested in working with personal computers or even high-end computers, once they get beyond, I think what Graham says, the gee whiz aspects, or maybe Max said that, they really need to take a close look at how these images are going to reproduce. I'd like to ask another question for each one of you to respond to real quickly. Are you guys getting much sleep these days, and are you enjoying yourselves more now that you got involved with digital imaging? Elmo?
Pardon?
Are you getting less sleep but enjoying yourself more these days since you got involved with digital imaging?
Well, you know, they promised that all this digital imaging was going to increase productivity and give me more leisure time.
Yeah.
And that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. What about you, Matt? How about are you enjoying yourself more these days, or more free time, or what?
Well, I think it's a fun time to be in this industry because it's just starting to, it's in its infancy stages and just growing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's exciting. On the other hand, it's obviously a lot of work and a lot of continuing education, both for ourselves and for our clients. So in that light, we don't sleep much, it's true.
Yeah. Hey, Jack, you're a fine art printer with a history in working in this area and other types of print media.
Hello?
How are, Jack?
Yes.
Okay, I'm glad we got you there. Being a fine art printer and working in many different media since 1970, as it says here, how do you think your lifestyle has changed now since you started working with digital imaging? Are you getting more sleep or less sleep these days?
Well, I imagine every time the excitement level rises in your life, you get less.
Uh-huh.
You can't wait to get up in the morning to get out there and see what's going to happen today.
Right.
But
Henry.
Actually, it's been very stimulating. There's been so much that has been brought to bear as a result of having worked in so many other media that this seems to bring it all together.
Right. Henry, you have your new book coming, The Permanence and Care of Color Photographs. Can you tell me, have you been getting much rest getting ready for this, and are you finding your days busier now or less busy?
Oh, definitely busier. This is I think an incredibly exciting time in color photography for all kinds of reasons, and including, and I think it's very, very important for people working as artists to get involved with computer image processing, because it's not only in terms of manipulation, but to have finally the kind of control we used to have with black and white, variable contrast, variable saturation, and very sophisticated dodging and burning. And I think it's just an incredibly exciting time in photography right now.
Great. Mac, I remember your energy the first time we spoke. There was no question about it. You seem to eat, sleep, and drink this, like the others at Nash Editions. But I'm just wondering when you fit any rest in. It seems like you have a lot of exciting projects going on at Nash Editions right now. Can you just tell us a little bit about the Globe project that you're doing?
Yeah, we were contacted by a company from Santa Monica, California, called the Geosphere Project. And the Geosphere people were the company that put together the poster that a lot of people have seen, which is a photograph of the Earth taken from satellite that was created by taking pictures of the Earth without cloud cover and combining them all together to create one large image of the Earth without cloud cover. They approached us with the idea of creating a 7-foot diameter globe, and they had no way to print the photograph onto the surface of the globe. Mm-hmm. So we consulted with them. We figured out a way to go about it, and Nash Editions printed the gores, or the separate little slices of the surface that were all put together to create a surface, and 24 of them in total, and they successfully went onto the globe, and it was shipped about 4 weeks ago to the Museum of Science and Industry in Osaka, Japan, and we have recently gotten an order for another one. So
great, that sounds exciting. Graham, when I first became aware of Nash Editions, I guess it was about 3 years ago, I saw your early pictures of David Crosby, and the articles that were written about the tonality and your passion for photography. Are you making pictures, and even making more pictures these days than before?
Absolutely. I'm continuing to create. I've been very resentful of having to sleep. If I could have my way, I wouldn't sleep at all. But of course, the body has to rebuild itself, and it's absolutely necessary. But I do resent it because there's so much going on in the digital world now. I find the same kind of excitement that I found in early rock and roll. You know, when garage bands used to just play and practice and rehearse and not care about sleeping and not care about eating and not care about getting paid. I'm finding that same energy in the computer world, and it's incredibly exciting. I have to agree with Henry and Elmo and Mac and Jack and Matt. That is an exciting world, and we should just jump on it here because it's coming at us faster than we could possibly believe.
I think we better all keep taking our vitamins. Graham, thanks very much.
My pleasure.
Mac, I'm really glad you could join us today. Speak to you again soon, I hope. Also, Matt Keefe from San Francisco, thanks very much. Elmo, I'll talk to you soon, I'm sure. And Henry, I know you're still there. We'll look forward to seeing your new book. And Jack, last but not least, I very much enjoyed visiting you, and we'll be sure to send you a tape real soon of what we've done at Nash Editions. Okay, that's all we have right now for our panel discussion. We want to go right into the question and answer period. Jim, from Santa Ana, California, what's your question?
I'd like to thank you for a really wonderful series. I think you guys have done a great job. My question relates to the cost per square inch as it relates to the output devices. At the high end, are there any significant cost differences per square inch at the top 3 level, let's say?
If you're talking about going out, for instance, to an LVT or an Iris inkjet print, or going out, for instance, to an ultra-stable print, yes, these are expensive output, very expensive output. But in answer to your question, the calibration procedure that takes place between your printmaker, in other words, your fine art printer or professional lab, makes it such that it's usually a very high cost for the first print, and then the subsequent prints from that are much lower in cost. But it is considerably more at this point in time. That's also the amount of availability of these systems as well. Esther from Spokane, Washington.
Yes, hello.
Hi.
I have a question about a printer. I've been trying to locate any printer that might be available with near photo resolution quality that has the capability to create a transfer that would heat seal to a fabric or other material such as cultured onyx. And particularly, I was interested in the ink they were talking about that had the UV protection against sunlight.
Yes. You're probably going to want to look to those manufacturers that are producing something that is accustomed to be transferred to either a rigorous or hard substrate, in other words, like you had mentioned, onyx, or over to a soft substrate like fabric. But you're going to need something that can transfer over and does have that UV protection. This might be an inkjet system. It may be through a more traditional process like working with screen printing as well. A lot of times when we work in electronic imaging, we only think about electronic hard copy output. In many cases, it makes more sense to go back to film and then go on to a half-toning device like a screen printing device to move that image back. Mark, I hope I answered your question there. I don't have a complete answer to it, but I at least maybe gave you some clues as to where you might start looking. Mark Leffeter from the University of Wisconsin. Mark, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great.
I got a couple questions. First, the Apple's the photo grade on Apple's new printer. Is that a piece of software that can be purchased to upgrade already laser printers that already have 300 dot capabilities, or is that something that's embedded in a chip with this new Apple printer?
I don't believe it's upgradable, but what I would suggest you do is get in touch with your local Apple rep. I don't know the answer to that question. See if there is some sort of a ROM upgrade, but I don't think that would be the solution at all. Please get in touch with Apple Computer on it. Oh, you had another question?
Yes. Chance of getting back up on the screen the internet number for a press link and digital photo list off of internet?
If you could stay online, I think possibly one of the people in the control room could give you that number again. Possibly we can put our internet number up right now. Is that possible? No, I guess it's not. We'll get you on the phone line on that. Sorry, can't help you. Okay. Charles, this is our, I'd like to get a question from you right now. You're from New York, New York, at FIT.
Right.
Right. My question is, how do I get my image outputted on a VCR?
I'm sorry, you'll have to repeat that question. We had a little problem with the audio here.
I know that's because I guess I'm too close to the sound, and I don't know how to get away from it because the phone is in the same room. But my question is, how do I get my image outputted onto a VCR tape?
Okay. If you wanted to go to a VCR tape, the best thing for you to do is to look at, for instance, a board like from RasterOps or SuperMac that would have a video out. Now, this would be a composite video out. In certain cases, you could even get a board from Neotech that would give you an RGB sync out and then go directly into your half-inch recording machine. In other words, your videotape recording machine. I would suggest there's many, many good places in New York City to find this kind of hardware and try it first before you buy it. You also may want to get in touch with your video production house. They may have an answer for you as well. But there's a lot of good products out there to do that at very, very high quality. Okay, I'm afraid that's our last question for today. We're running out of time. I just want to go back to the chart before we leave. We've had a very, very busy last 4 sessions together, 8 hours of broadcast. We're looking at this wonderful world now called electronic imaging. I think Graham Nash wrapped it up best. He said, I kind of resent the idea that there's sleep, because essentially the need for sleep, because there's so many wonderful tools and technologies right now that visual communicators can work with. Yes, a lot of you will get out there and play with electronic cameras or get some of your first scans done and then move over to a personal computer. But once you get by that gee whiz, let me see what I can do, you'll notice that the pictures that you're working on in the screen are just like the pictures that you'd be working on in your darkroom. But there's so many more things that you can do in this environment. So get out and get started right now. I think the major concern that we're looking at right now, as you heard from Henry Wilhelm, is image permanence. And as you heard from other people that were on the phone panel today, is awareness of these different types of hard copy output and how to prepare images for them. It is not rocket science, but it does mean that you as a communicator need to get out and get started. Reading and contacting people on online services, speaking to the user groups in your own community, and trying these tools out. Okay? All right. Well, first of all, this ends the ESP 93 teleconference series from Rochester, New York. First of all, I'd like to thank my family. I could not have done this if it wasn't for the support of my wife and children. I'm totally thankful to you folks. I'd also like to thank RIT's Office of Distance Learning, the Instructional Media Services Department that did a fantastic job in helping to put this show together right up to the last few seconds. Also, the School of Photographic Arts and Sciences at the new College of Imaging Arts and Sciences at Rochester Institute of Technology. We've got a lot of wonderful things going on here. I hope that you can come and visit us someday, and please stop by to see me if you're in the Rochester area. Don't forget, Montage 93 is coming up. That would be a good opportunity as well. And last but not least, I'd like to thank Eastman Kodak Company for their support in this teleconference. And that's it for now. So hope to see you next time. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you've learned something. That's it from Rochester. Take care.